They say that every small town in America has a story no one wants to talk about. Some stories are about haunted houses, some about strange lights in the sky, some about disappearances that were never solved. But in rural Ohio, there is one story that keeps truckers awake on long drives and makes locals drive just a little faster when they pass a certain stretch of highway. It's the story of the gas station at midnight. Daniel Carter wasn't the type of man who believed in ghost stories. He was 27, a mechanic at the factory in town, the kind of guy who worked long hours, drank too much coffee, and tried not to think about anything other than the next paycheck. On that night, he was driving home after a grueling double shift, his eyes heavy, his body aching, his mind set only on his bed. It was past midnight, and the road was nearly empty. He'd driven this highway dozens of times, maybe hundreds, but something about it felt different that night. The silence pressed in harder, the darkness felt thicker, and the empty road seemed to stretch on forever. Then his gas gauge lit up. The needle was pressed firmly against empty. He cursed under his breath. He hadn't even noticed it dropping so low. He knew the stretch of road well enough to remember there shouldn't have been a gas station for miles. But as he rounded a bend, there it was, a glowing neon sign that simply read, "Fuel, open 24 hours." Daniel frowned. He didn't remember a station here. Still, the idea of running out of gas in the middle of nowhere was worse than stopping at a strange station. He slowed, pulled in, and parked by the pump. The lot was deserted, except for one old sedan parked crookedly near the side. Its windows were dark, dust caked along the sides, and weeds grew around the tires as if it hadn't moved in years. The fluorescent lights above the pumps buzzed and flickered, casting long shadows across the cracked pavement. Daniel stepped out, shivering as a cold gust of air whipped across the lot. He shoved his hands in his pockets and glanced around. The place was too quiet. No traffic on the road, no insects chirping, no sound at all except the faint buzzing overhead. He tried the pump, but the screen was dead, the handle locked. With a frustrated sigh, he decided to go inside. The door creaked open with a reluctant groan. A bell above it chimed weakly, though the sound seemed muffled, like it didn't belong in the air. Inside, the store looked frozen in time. Shelves of faded candy bars, soda bottles coated in dust, chips with logos that looked years out of date. The air was stale, heavy, carrying the faint scent of mildew. Behind the counter sat an old man. His skin was gray and papery, his frame thin, his eyes cloudy but sharp. He didn't move when Daniel entered. He just stared. Daniel cleared his throat. "Hey, pump 2 isn't working. Can you turn it on?" The old man's lips parted slowly. His voice was raspy, strained but deliberate. "You shouldn't be here." Daniel blinked, confused. "What? Look, I just need some gas. I'm running on empty. I'll pay cash." The old man didn't answer. He simply raised one hand, bony fingers trembling, and pointed toward the window. Daniel turned. His stomach dropped. There, sitting in the driver's seat of his car, was a man. Daniel's heart slammed in his chest. The man was pale, his hair dark, his lips curled into a wide, unnatural grin. His eyes were too dark, like empty wells, and they were fixed directly at him. He spun back toward the counter, ready to demand answers. But the stool was empty. The old man was gone. The store lights flickered once, then dimmed. Daniel stumbled backward, slamming into a rack of dusty chips. His mind raced. He turned back to the window. His car was empty again. The driver's seat was vacant, the door closed, the interior dark. Adrenaline surged. He bolted outside, gravel crunching beneath his boots. He yanked open his car door, half expecting to see the stranger still there, but nothing. The keys were in the ignition. The seat was warm. Too warm. His hands trembled as he sat inside and slammed the lock. His breath came in sharp bursts. He glanced around the lot. The old sedan sat silently, unmoving. The pumps buzzed under the lights. The store's windows were dark. He jammed the key into the ignition. The engine sputtered, roared, then steadied. Relief washed over him, until he looked up. In the rearview mirror, he saw them. Rows of faces, pale, grinning, sitting inside cars that hadn't been there a moment ago. Dozens of vehicles lined the lot now, each with a driver staring straight at him. Their eyes were hollow, their smiles too wide, their bodies too still. Daniel's chest tightened. He slammed the car into gear and tore across the lot. Tires screeched, gravel sprayed, the engine roared. The exit loomed ahead. He shot forward, desperate to escape. But when he passed the edge of the lot, the highway wasn't there. It was only more pavement, more pumps, more buzzing lights. He was still in the gas station. He screamed, gripping the wheel tighter, pressing harder on the gas. The car surged forward, but the scenery didn't change. Pump after pump, car after car, all identical, all stretching endlessly into the night. His radio crackled to life. Static hissed, broken only by a faint, distorted voice. At first, it was unintelligible. Then, through the static, words formed. "You shouldn't be here." His blood ran cold. It was the old man's voice. Daniel slammed the radio off. He drove harder, faster, but the lot never ended. The faces in the cars grew clearer. They weren't strangers anymore. They were familiar. His old classmates, co-workers, neighbors, people he hadn't seen in years. Some he knew had died. All of them stared at him with that same empty grin. He blinked, rubbed his eyes, tried to convince himself he was hallucinating from exhaustion, but when he opened them again, one of the faces was his own, sitting in a car directly beside him, staring back with that lifeless smile. He swerved away, tires screeching, heart pounding. He pressed the accelerator until the pedal was to the floor. The speedometer climbed, but the station remained. His chest tightened, vision blurring with panic. The radio snapped back on, louder this time, static giving way to whispers, dozens of voices overlapping, chanting, "You shouldn't be here! You shouldn't be here!" Daniel slammed his fist against the wheel. "Then let me out!" he screamed. But the whispers only grew louder. He drove until his hands were numb, until sweat poured down his face, until the gas gauge, miraculously full just moments ago, began to drop again. His car sputtered, slowed, coasted. He slammed the ignition, desperate, but the engine died. The lights flickered out. Silence fell. He sat trembling in the dark. Then he saw them. Figures emerging from the cars, stepping onto the endless pavement. Dozens of them, hundreds, all smiling, all walking slowly toward him. Their movements were stiff, jerky, unnatural. Their eyes glowed faintly in the fluorescent light. Daniel tried the door handle, but it wouldn't budge. He pounded on the glass, screamed, but no sound seemed to carry. The figures surrounded the car, pressing their faces to the windows, their breath fogging the glass, though their lips never moved. The smiles never faltered. Then one of them opened the door. Daniel didn't see how, didn't see the handle move. It was simply open. A pale hand reached in, fingers cold and bony, and grabbed his arm. He screamed as he was pulled from the car, dragged onto the pavement. The figures closed in. He kicked, thrashed, begged, but their strength was unnatural. They forced him toward the old sedan in the corner of the lot. Its door opened on its own. Inside, darkness waited. He fought until his voice broke, but they shoved him inside. The door slammed. The darkness swallowed him whole. The next morning, travelers passed the stretch of Highway 45. There was no gas station, no glowing sign.
just an empty road. But those who swore they had seen it before knew the truth. And sometimes when they drove past at night, they noticed a beat-up old sedan sitting at the side of the road. And if they looked closely, through the dirty window, they could swear they saw a man inside. His face pale, his eyes empty, his lips curved into an endless smile. Daniel Carter never made it home that night. And if you ever find yourself on that lonely road past midnight and you see a flickering sign offering fuel, think twice before pulling in, because once you enter the gas station at midnight, you may never leave.
There are roads in America that carry more than just cars. Some carry memories, others carry sorrow, and a few carry things much darker. Route 17, cutting through North Carolina, is one such road. By day, it looks ordinary, stretching past fields and forests, quiet towns and old barns. But at night, when the fog settles low and the rain streaks across the windshield, Route 17 reveals its secret. That's when travelers speak of the girl. Her story has been told in whispers for decades. Truckers, couples, late-night workers, they've all seen her. A young woman in a white dress, standing at the roadside, her arm raised, begging for a ride. They say if you pass her by, you'll feel a weight of guilt, like you left someone behind. But if you stop, your life may never be the same. One rainy autumn night, a couple named Michael and Sarah were driving home after visiting family. The clock read nearly 1 in the morning. The rain fell in steady sheets, and their wipers struggled to keep up. The road ahead was nearly invisible. Sarah dozed against the window while Michael gripped the wheel, fighting sleep. Then he saw her. A girl, no older than 20, soaked from the rain, her long hair plastered to her face. She stood at the shoulder of the road, a small suitcase at her feet, her hand raised weakly. Michael slowed instinctively. Sarah stirred, blinking at the figure. "Is that someone out here?" she whispered. Michael nodded. "She looks like she needs help." Against Sarah's hesitation, he pulled over. The girl stepped forward, her dress clinging to her frame, her bare feet splashing in the puddles. She opened the back door without a word and slid in, hugging herself tightly, as if trying to hold in the last of her warmth. Her voice was soft, almost too soft. "Thank you. I just need to get home." Michael asked where she lived, and she gave an address a few miles down the road. Sarah turned to offer her a blanket, but the girl only shook her head. "I'll be fine. Just take me home." They drove in silence. The rain pounded the car, drowning out every sound but the rhythmic slap of the wipers. Michael glanced at the mirror now and then. The back seat was empty. His heart jolted. He swerved slightly, glancing over his shoulder. Nothing. The blanket lay untouched, the seat damp only with rainwater. The girl was gone. Sarah gasped. "Where is she? Did she? Michael, she was right there." Michael's hands shook on the wheel. She must have gotten out. But the doors had never opened. They would have heard them. Despite their fear, they drove on to the address she had given. A small, weathered house sat back from the road, its porch light dim. Michael parked, and Sarah hesitated before knocking. An elderly woman answered, her face lined with years and sorrow. Michael cleared his throat. I think we picked up your daughter. She gave us this address, but He faltered, unsure how to explain. She disappeared. The woman's eyes filled with tears. She stepped back, shaking her head. You saw her? Sarah spoke softly. Yes. On Route 17. In the rain. The woman covered her mouth. Her voice broke. That's my daughter. She died on that road 10 years ago. The couple stood frozen. The rain poured harder, thunder rolling in the distance. The woman wiped her tears. She always tries to come home.
That night changed Michael and Sarah forever. They never told many people, afraid no one would believe them. But the story of the hitchhiker didn't start with them, and it didn't end there. Over the years, countless drivers on Route 17 reported the same encounter. Some picked her up and drove her part way before she vanished. Others saw her only standing on the roadside, watching silently as they passed. A few said she spoke to them, asking the same question again and again. Can you take me home? One trucker, years after the couple's experience, swore he picked her up and offered her coffee from his thermos. She smiled faintly, accepted the cup and thanked him. He set the cup in her lap as he kept driving. When he reached to take it back, she was gone, but the cup remained, full, still steaming. Another story told of a college student who drove the road late one night. He claimed she appeared in his passenger seat without him ever stopping. She begged him to slow down, to turn back, tears streaming down her face. When he refused, she screamed and then she vanished. Minutes later, his car skidded off the road into a ditch. He survived, but he swore it was her warning that saved him. Skeptics say it's just a legend, a mix of guilt and imagination born from the dangers of driving a lonely road at night. They say people see what they expect to see, or what fear creates in their minds. But the stories are too consistent, too detailed, too real to ignore. Locals know better. They avoid Route 17 after midnight. They say if you see the girl, you're marked. She doesn't just vanish, she lingers. Some who gave her a ride claimed they later saw her reflection in mirrors, standing at the foot of their beds, watching from the corners of rooms. Some said they dreamed of her night after night, her voice echoing in the dark, "Take me home." Michael and Sarah moved away from North Carolina a year after their encounter, but even states away, Sarah confessed she sometimes saw a wet footprint near their door on rainy nights. Michael admitted he heard the creak of the back door opening in the middle of the night, though it was always locked. And once, when Michael drove alone late at night, he glanced in his mirror and swore he saw her sitting silently in the back seat. He pulled over, heart racing, but when he looked, the seat was empty. Only the faint smell of rain lingered. The legend of the vanishing hitchhiker endures because it carries a truth few want to admit. The dead don't always stay buried. Some are bound to places, to moments, to tragedies that refuse to let them go. And on Route 17, that bond is unbroken. If you ever find yourself driving that lonely road at night, and you see a young woman in white, standing in the rain, suitcase at her feet, hand raised for help, remember this story. You may feel compelled to stop. You may feel guilty if you don't. But whatever choice you make, know this. Once you see her, you're already part of her story. And her story never ends. They say the plains of Kansas are endless, Rolling fields, golden waves of grain, skies that stretch wider than the eye can hold. But even in a place so open, so calm, there are shadows. And one of those shadows clings to a place the locals call Miller's Woods. By day, the woods seem ordinary. Thin trees clustered together, their trunks crooked, their branches whispering in the prairie wind. Hunters pass through, children dare each other to step inside, couples carve their names into bark. But at night, when the moon dips low and the wind dies, the woods awaken. That's when people hear the screams. The screams don't sound human, though they echo with human agony. Some say it's a woman crying out for help. Others swear it's a child, lost and desperate. A few believe it's neither, that it's something older, something that only mimics human suffering to lure the curious closer. The story begins in the late 1800s, when a family named Miller settled near the woods. They built a cabin, cleared the land, and tried to tame the wild prairie, but the woods resisted. Crops failed near its edges, animals strayed inside and never returned, and at night the Millers heard voices drifting from the trees. Neighbors avoided the family. They whispered that Miller's wife Eliza had gone mad, that she wandered into the woods at night, barefoot and silent, staring at the moon until dawn. One winter, she vanished. Her body was never found. After her disappearance, the screams began. At first, just faint wails on the wind, but soon louder, sharper, unmistakably human. Travelers reported them to the sheriff, but every search ended the same: an empty forest, no footprints, no sign of anyone alive. The Millers abandoned the cabin within a year. The land stood empty, the cabin rotting, the woods spreading like a stain across the prairie. And still, the screams continued. Decades passed, but the legend remained. In the 1930s, a group of boys dared each other to spend a night in Miller's Woods. Only one emerged by morning. He stumbled out at dawn, trembling, his hair turned white before its time. He never spoke again. In the 1960s, a couple parked near the woods, seeking privacy. They never returned home. Their car was found abandoned, doors open, keys still in the ignition. Inside, claw marks shredded the seats, deep gouges that no human hand could make. Their bodies were never found. And in the 1990s, a team of paranormal investigators brought cameras and recorders, eager to prove the legend. What they captured was chilling. Hours of static, broken only by bursts of shrieking, voices crying for help, begging to be released. At one point, one of the investigators shouted into the darkness, "Who are you?" The reply came back, not from the equipment, but from the woods themselves. A voice, clear, anguished. Eliza. To this day, no one knows if it was truly her spirit or something using her name. Locals warn strangers to stay away. They say Miller's Woods doesn't just scare, it takes. Some who enter never come out. Others do, but they're never the same. They're haunted, plagued by nightmares, tormented by whispers in the night. One farmer, years ago, claimed he cut through the woods to save time. By the time he emerged, his watch was broken, and what he thought was a 20-minute walk had lasted 6 hours. He swore he heard voices following him, always just behind, though when he turned, there was nothing. For the rest of his life, he never spoke of what they said, only that the voices knew his name.
Another man, a hunter, entered the woods at dawn. At noon, his dog came running out alone, whimpering, its fur matted with blood. The hunter was found 2 days later, wandering the edge of town, barefoot, his clothes torn, his face blank. He could not remember his own name. And yet, the woods call to people. Some go out of curiosity, others out of defiance, and a few out of desperation. not all, return. The screams themselves are the most terrifying. Witnesses describe them differently, but all agree on one thing. They don't sound distant. They sound close. Too close. Sometimes they echo from deep within the woods. Other times they rise just behind your shoulder, so near you feel the breath against your ear. And when you turn, there is nothing. One woman, driving past the woods late one night, swore she heard a child crying out from the trees. Against her better judgment, she pulled over and stepped into the darkness, calling out, "Where are you?" The cries grew louder, guiding her deeper, twisting her path until she was lost. She followed them until dawn, when she finally stumbled out, shaking, her shoes soaked with blood. No child was ever found. The police refused to investigate anymore. Too many missing, too many dead ends. They write it off as accidents, drifters, wild animals. But the townsfolk know. They've lived with the woods all their lives, and they've heard the screams. Even now, on calm summer nights, when the air is still and the stars shine bright, the silence breaks. The cries begin, long, wailing, mournful, rising from the black tangle of trees. Dogs howl, cattle stir, and windows slam shut. Families huddle together, whispering prayers, because they know the woods are calling again. Some say the screams are Eliza Miller, forever searching for a way home. Others think they're the voices of all who vanished there, trapped, their souls bound to the forest. And a few believe the truth is worse, that the woods themselves are alive, feeding on fear, using voices to lure new victims into their depths. There is no proof, no evidence beyond stories, but the stories are enough. Enough to keep people away after dark. Enough to leave Miller's Woods untouched, its borders unmarked, its shadows unbroken. And yet, if you stand at the edge on a moonless night, you may feel it, the pull, the chill that crawls up your spine, the sense that something is waiting just beyond the first row of trees, watching, listening. And if you stay long enough, you'll hear them, the screams, rising, falling, twisting through the branches like smoke, pleading, begging, crying. Voices of the lost, the damned, the forgotten. They say if you answer, if you call back into the dark, the woods will answer too, and you will never leave. So if you ever find yourself in Kansas, and someone points across the prairie to that small patch of forest and tells you it's Miller's Woods, remember this story. Remember the screams.